As the caretaker approached, the lion, not seen for 8 years, paused mid-roar, his intense gaze locking onto her. Every muscle tensed, his reaction held onlookers breathless, a silent, electric moment of recognition sparking across the air, leaving everyone around utterly speechless. What would happen next? Sarah's heart raced as she spotted a tiny form staggering through the tall grass, a lion cub, frail and alone. Her instincts as a wildlife guide kicked in immediately. With a firm, calm voice, she instructed the tourists in the jeep to remain seated and quiet. She knew the risks, but the cub's survival hung in a delicate balance. Approaching cautiously, she could see the cub's sides heaving, its eyes wide and frightened. "It's all right, little one," she whispered, though she knew the cub couldn't understand her words. Gently, Sarah wrapped the cub in her jacket, shielding it from the chilly wind, and carried it back to the vehicle. The tourists watched in silent awe, their cameras forgotten in the moment. As Sarah settled the cub beside her, she explained the situation. "This little guy has been left all alone. He's weak and needs care if he's to make it." Her voice was a mix of concern and determination. One of the tourists, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, handed her a water bottle. "Thank you," Sarah nodded, grateful for the compassion. Throughout the drive back to the visitor centre, Sarah kept one hand on the trembling cub, feeling its heartbeat against her palm. It was moments like these that reinforced her life's choice, to be here, in the wild, making a difference. She had always felt a deep connection to animals, and now, holding this vulnerable life in her hands, Sarah's resolve hardened. She would do whatever it took to ensure this cub, who she already thought of as Leo, this cub's future, now intertwined with her own, was uncertain. But as Sarah looked into its fearful eyes, she promised silently that she would not let it face that future alone. At the sanctuary, the veterinarians welcomed Sarah and the cub with urgency, understanding the critical situation. Sarah watched anxiously as they examined Leo, providing him with the fluids and nutrition he so desperately needed. Her relief was palpable when they assured her he would recover with proper care. Sarah's commitment to Leo didn't end with his medical treatment. She requested, and was granted, permission to stay at the sanctuary to assist with his rehabilitation. Each day, she was by Leo's side from dawn until dusk, her presence a constant source of comfort as he adapted to his new surroundings. Leo's enclosure, a spacious area with a sheltered den and a small grassy field, became Sarah's second home. She spent hours there, talking softly to Leo, encouraging him as he explored his new world. The cub, though initially hesitant, began to respond to her voice, his curiosity often overcoming his fear. One morning, while discussing Leo's progress with the sanctuary staff, Sarah expressed her hopes and fears. "He's adjusting, but it's a big change for him," she explained. Her voice held a mix of professional detachment and personal concern. "I want to make sure he doesn't just survive here. I want him to thrive." The staff, impressed by her dedication, supported her wholeheartedly. "You're doing great, Sarah. It's clear he trusts you," one of the senior caretakers remarked, watching as Leo tentatively played with a soft ball she had introduced to help build his confidence. Sarah's days became a blend of routine and innovation as she found new ways to enrich Leo's environment. She introduced scents from the park and toys that simulated prey movements, helping him develop the instincts he'd need to thrive in the wild. Observing Leo's interactions, Sarah felt a profound connection to the young lion, her resolve strengthening with each small step he took toward independence. Each successful interaction, each sign of Leo's growing confidence, filled Sarah with pride, yet also a poignant reminder of the eventual goal, for Leo to be self-sufficient, possibly without her. This thought lingered in the back of her mind, bittersweet but vital for both their sakes. As she watched Leo finally start to play freely, chasing leaves and pouncing on shadows, Sarah knew that every effort was a step towards a future where he could stand alone, a future she was determined to secure for him. As weeks turned into months, the sanctuary became witness to the burgeoning bond between Sarah and Leo. Every morning, Sarah arrived with the same bright energy, greeted by Leo's increasingly eager roars. The cub, once timid and withdrawn, now rushed to the edge of his enclosure at the sound of her voice, his tail twitching with anticipation. Their daily activities were a blend of learning and play, carefully designed by Sarah to mimic the challenges Leo would face in the wild. They practiced stalking, with Sarah using toys to teach Leo how to move silently and pounce. They played games of chase, which not only strengthened his body, but also his trust in her, as he would always return to her side after darting away. Sarah's interactions with Leo were filled with soft words of encouragement. "You're doing so well, Leo," she would often say, her voice warm and affectionate. She treated each of their sessions not just as training, but as opportunities for connection. It was during these moments, as she watched Leo play and learn, that Sarah felt a profound sense of responsibility and attachment. One particularly quiet afternoon, Sarah sat near Leo, reading aloud from a book about lions. Leo lay beside her, his head resting close to her lap, listening intently, or perhaps simply enjoying the calmness of her presence. "You know, Leo, you're quite the listener," she joked softly, reaching out to gently ruffle his mane. Leo responded with a soft grunt, his eyes closing in contentment. Their bond deepened with each passing day, built on countless shared moments of gentle touches, playful challenges, and quiet companionship. Sarah knew that Leo's ability to trust and connect with her would be crucial for his development. She could see his confidence growing, his demeanor shifting from that of a dependent cub to a more assertive young lion. As Sarah watched Leo navigate his enclosure with a new ease, a sense of accomplishment filled her. Yet, she wondered, as their bond grew stronger, would he continue to see her as a protector, a teacher, or something more akin to family? Only time would tell, but for now, she cherished the trust that flourished between them. Leo's journey toward independence took a significant leap forward when Sarah decided it was time for him to meet the other lions at the sanctuary. With mixed emotions, she watched him, now a robust young lion, as he cautiously approached the common area where the others congregated. It was a pivotal moment, both in Leo's life and in the bond they shared. The introduction was meticulous. Sarah started by bringing Leo close to the enclosure where he could see and smell the other lions without direct contact. She observed intently, ready to intervene if needed, as Leo's curiosity slowly overcame his initial hesitation. His first interactions were tentative, a sniff here, a distant roar there, his ears always flicking back towards Sarah for reassurance. As days passed, Leo's confidence grew. He began to engage more with a young lioness named Nala. Sarah watched their playful tussles and chases, a bittersweet feeling washing over her. She knew this was what Leo needed, to be a lion among lions, but it also meant he was moving away from her, inch by inch. "You're ready for this, aren't you?" she murmured to herself, a smile tugging at her lips even as her heart twinged with sadness. Sarah's role shifted subtly with each passing day. She was no longer just a caregiver, but a guardian of a transition, guiding Leo towards a life she wouldn't be a part of. With every step Leo took towards independence, Sarah prepared herself to step back, her pride in his progress tinged with the sorrow of impending separation. Training sessions continued, but now they were more about honing Leo's instincts rather than building trust. Sarah introduced new exercises that simulated hunting, teaching Leo how to conceal himself and strike with precision. She watched, heart swelling with pride, as Leo mastered each challenge, his movements fluid and assured. In her quieter moments, watching Leo integrate with the pride, Sarah reflected on their journey together. "This is what I wanted for you," she thought, watching him from a distance. "To see you not just survive, but truly live." Her commitment to his well-being had always been clear, but it was in these moments, seeing him thrive without her, that she truly understood the depth of their connection. Leo's successful integration into the lion community marked a new chapter in his life, one of autonomy and belonging. Sarah felt a complex mix of relief and melancholy. She knew her job was nearly done, and soon she would have to let go completely, trusting that she had equipped him well for his future. This realization was both her mission's culmination and its most challenging test, as she prepared to eventually say goodbye to the lion who had grown so dear to her.
Miss Sarah, I am Dr. John. Sorry for that, but I have some bad news. Your father is severely sick and he is hospitalized.
The day Sarah received the call about her father's illness, the sanctuary was bathed in the soft light of early morning. The news was a crushing blow, her responsibilities at home suddenly overshadowing the life she had built here. With a heavy heart, she knew what she had to do, but the thought of leaving Leo, now thriving and integrated, filled her with dread. Packing her belongings was a mechanical process. Her mind was elsewhere, with Leo and the impending farewell. She walked to his enclosure for what would be the last time in a long while. Leo, sensing her approach, came bounding over, his mane catching the light, his presence as commanding as ever. "Hey, big guy," Sarah said softly, her voice thick with emotion as she reached through the fence to stroke his mane. Leo nuzzled her hand, his big eyes searching hers. "I have to go home for a bit," she continued, her words catching in her throat. "My dad needs me." She knew Leo couldn't understand her words, but she hoped he could sense their meaning through her tone and touch. The sanctuary was alive with the sounds of the other animals, but in that moment it felt as though they were the only two beings in the world. "You'll be okay," she murmured, more to reassure herself than him. "You're strong, and you've got a whole family here now." Her hand lingered on his fur, memorizing the texture, burning this moment into her memory. Turning to leave, Sarah felt Leo's gaze on her back. The finality of the moment was overwhelming. It was not just a goodbye, but a relinquishing of the daily bond they shared. She walked away with slow, heavy steps, each one echoing the internal turmoil of her torn responsibilities. Back at the staff quarters, her colleagues offered words of support and promises to look after Leo. They knew the depth of her bond with the lion and understood the difficulty of her decision. "We'll send updates and pictures too," one of them promised, trying to ease her burden. As Sarah drove away from the sanctuary, the image of Leo at the fence lingered in her rearview mirror. How would he cope with her sudden absence? Would he remember her when she returned? The road ahead was uncertain. Her heart split between her family and the lion who had grown to embody so much of her world. The sanctuary faded into the distance, but Leo remained steadfast in her thoughts as she faced the challenges ahead. As the months turned into years, the sanctuary continued its rhythm, but for Leo, Sarah's absence left a void no amount of time could fill. Initially, he maintained his routines, his strength and majesty undiminished. But as seasons changed, so too did Leo's demeanor. He became less engaged with the activities that once filled his days with joy and purpose. The staff noticed the shift in Leo. His playful interactions with Nala and the other lions waned, replaced by a listlessness that was uncharacteristic of the spirited lion they knew. "He just stands there, gazing out beyond the fence for hours," one caretaker shared during a staff meeting, concern evident in her voice. "It's like he's waiting for something or someone." Leo's decline was gradual but noticeable. He began retreating more into himself, spending long periods lying in the shade of his favorite tree, his eyes lacking their usual spark. The sanctuary's vet conducted checkups, ensuring no physical ailments were to blame. Yet it was clear to everyone that Leo's health was mirroring the emotional loss he felt. "He misses Sarah," the head of the sanctuary said one evening as they watched Leo from a distance. "Animals remember, and they feel lost deeply," he added, reflecting on the bond Leo and Sarah had shared. The team intensified their efforts, introducing new enrichment activities to capture Leo's interest, but the lion's heart seemed elsewhere. During this time, the staff kept their promise to Sarah, sending her updates and videos of Leo. Each email was bittersweet for Sarah, a mix of gratitude for their care and guilt for her absence. At home, her father's health had its ups and downs, demanding much of her time and emotional energy. Yet, Leo was never far from her thoughts, her concern for him a constant ache. Sarah's room was filled with pictures of Leo, and at night, her dreams often took her back to the sanctuary, to the sound of Leo's roars and the feeling of his mane under her fingers. She clung to these memories, hoping they weren't fading for Leo as they remained vivid for her. Year after year passed, and with each update from the sanctuary, Sarah felt a mix of relief and sadness. Leo was surviving, but without her, he wasn't thriving. The question lingered in her heart, heavy and persistent. Would she ever return to see him? And if she did, after all this time, would Leo still remember her? The hope of reuniting with him kept her going, a distant light in the fog of her current life, holding on to the possibility of one day returning to the place where their hearts had grown together. Years of waiting culminated in the moment Sarah drove back through the gates of the sanctuary, her heart pounding with anticipation and nerves. The landscape was familiar, yet held a surreal quality, as if she was stepping into a dream she had revisited many times in her absence. As she parked and stepped out of her car, her steps were hesitant, yet determined, driven by the overwhelming desire to see Leo once more. Her old colleagues greeted her with warm hugs and smiles, their faces etching out the years that had passed. "He's changed a bit," one of them warned as they walked toward Leo's enclosure. "Just prepare yourself." As they approached, Sarah's eyes searched eagerly through the bars before resting on the majestic lion sprawled under the same old tree, his mane now fully thickened, his presence commanding even in repose. Her breath caught in her throat. "Leo," she whispered, her voice a mix of joy and trepidation. Leo's ears twitched at the sound, his head lifting slowly. His gaze was distant, cautious, scanning the figure before him. Sarah's heart raced. Did he remember her? "Hey, big guy," Sarah called softly, pressing closer to the fence. "It's me. It's Sarah. I've missed you so much." At the sound of her voice, a more familiar one, something shifted in Leo. His posture straightened, his nose twitched, scenting the air. He rose, his movements deliberate, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her heart skip. With slow, measured steps, he approached, his gaze never wavering. Sarah's eyes welled up as Leo stopped just inches from the fence, his golden eyes peering into hers. A low, rumbling purr vibrated through the air, a sound of recognition and reunion. The moment hung suspended, filled with emotion and the weight of years apart. Carefully, Sarah extended her hand towards the fence. Leo leaned forward, his nose brushing against her fingers, his breath warm against her skin. "I knew you'd remember," Sarah murmured, her voice thick with tears. The bond they shared, forged in the days of his youth, remained unbroken by time. The sanctuary staff watched in awe as Leo rubbed his cheek against the fence, marking the spot where Sarah's hand rested. Then, with a playful nudge that reminded her of his younger days, he signaled a welcome that only hearts connected beyond words could understand. Sarah spent the afternoon by Leo's side, talking to him about her life, her father's recovery, and her long journey back. Leo listened, his head resting near her, his eyes occasionally closing in contentment. It was as if no time had passed at all. From that day forward, Leo's spirits lifted. His energy returned, his interest in his surroundings rekindled. Sarah's return not only revived their extraordinary friendship, but also breathed new life into both their hearts. Together again, they faced the future, a testament to the enduring power of connection across the boundaries of species and time. With the emotional reunion behind them, Sarah quickly settled back into the rhythm of sanctuary life, her days once again filled with the familiar sights and sounds of the wildlife she cherished. Leo, rejuvenated by her return, thrived as if basking in the renewed attention and love. His mane, darker and fuller, seemed to shine in the sun as he roamed his enclosure, now with a vigour that had been missing. Sarah, too, felt a renewed sense of purpose. She resumed her work with more passion than ever, her expertise and dedication deepening. Her experiences over the years had enriched her understanding, which she now poured into her role at the sanctuary. Leo was often by her side, a constant reminder of why she had chosen this path. Their days were a blend of care, research, and education. Sarah led tours, her narratives enriched by personal stories of Leo, which captivated visitors and underscored the sanctuary's message of conservation and empathy towards all creatures. Her bond with Leo, a symbol of hope and resilience, inspired those who heard their story. "I think we're making a real difference, Leo," Sarah said one afternoon as they watched a group of schoolchildren gaze in awe at the lions. Leo's tail flicked contentedly in response, his eyes following the children as they moved on to the next exhibit. Their conversations, though one-sided, were filled with plans for the future. Sarah was determined to expand the sanctuary's educational programs, integrating more interactive elements that could help people understand the importance of preserving wildlife. "It's about creating a legacy, isn't it?" she mused aloud, looking towards Leo, who seemed to listen intently. The future for Sarah and Leo looked bright. Their days were filled with shared moments that continued to strengthen their bond. Together, they faced each new day with anticipation and joy, their lives intertwined in a dance of mutual respect and affection that went beyond mere survival to something much deeper, a lasting testament to the power of connection and the impact one individual can have on another's life, no matter the species. Their journey together was far from over. It was just another beginning in their shared story of growth and mutual care.